Hey guys, Tarke here, and from the title of this video, this is kind of an uncomfortable video for me to make. I've prepared a statement, so if it ever feels like I'm reading a script, it's because I'm reading a script, so I didn't get lost in my own thoughts. Anyway, I nearly ended up working for GGG, and sadly that has been put on indefinite hold. Things may change in the future, but who knows. I've had ongoing conversations with Chris, and maybe one day something might pop up for which I'm a good fit. With Octavian recently announcing that he is working with GGG, it's brought up a lot of emotions and feelings that I'm still working through, and with Chris's blessing, I am making this video in an effort to be honest with you guys and to help me work through some stuff. I'm extremely proud of Octavian. He's a close friend, and I think he'll be an amazing asset in whatever capacity he ends up fulfilling for grinding gear games. I want to make it perfectly clear this is not an attempt to attack any individual or to paint anyone in a bad light. I'm just trying to process some feelings, and I want to stop feeling like I have to tiptoe around certain uncomfortable topics. I have a very close working and personal relationship with Bex, and the deepest respect and gratitude for Chris Wilson for everything that has been offered to me. I also want to say at this point, I think everyone down in New Zealand who works on PoE is amazing, and while I have a tendency to rant over certain game decisions, I think they're doing an amazing job, and in my opinion, they're the best game studio out there. So, what actually happened? I love streaming and everything I do with Bayclast. The reality of content creation, however, for the vast majority of creators is that it isn't financially stable. You either make it or you don't. The vast majority don't. For a while, I've been using my content to help build a portfolio to use in applying for positions in game development. So, when I was invited by GGG to fly down to New Zealand for a free holiday and to host the opening of ExileCon, I realised this could be my chance. Bex was well aware of my ambitions. Octavian and myself had been speaking with one another about our desires of working at GGG for some time now. Leading up to the event, we even made plans to come up with a league concept to pitch towards Chris in an effort to show our creativity and possible value to the team. I loved every moment of ExileCon and met some wonderful people both from Grinding Great Games and the community itself. After the event, I was invited to the office by Chris during the dinner at Jonathan's house. I asked if Octavian was also welcome to come along, since I knew that Chris had shown interest in possibly hiring Octavian before, and it seemed like an incredible opportunity for both of us to be in the office with him. The studio is awesome. Octavian and myself spent about 5 hours just hanging out with Chris and other members of staff. While in the office, I messed around playing Path of Exile 2 on Chris's computer in his office, and the talk turned to possible employment. I threw my hat into the ring and things looked really positive. A rough idea was formed that at some point both Octavian and myself would fly down to New Zealand on a 1-year work visa. We would find a place to live together and have a 1-year trial period at GGG. Depending on how that trial period went, maybe we'd both find more permanent positions further down the line. I left the studio that day on the greatest high of my life, and was really hopeful and excited for my possible future in New Zealand. Things seemed awesome. I told my family and a few close friends about our plans, and for about a month or so I was ecstatic. Octavian and myself would have talks about how surreal it all was, and we would have occasional meetings with Chris over Discord, where we discussed the logistics of moving and our realistic timelines. Nothing was ever set completely in stone, but we discussed possible pay, and at one point Chris said, "Imagine if I asked you guys to move by Christmas, could you do it?" So for some time, I genuinely believed I'd secured a dream position working on a game I deeply care about. Sadly, reality isn't that easy. After a while, I noticed a tonal shift in my conversations with Chris, and talk changed from "this is going to happen" to "if this can happen, and let's keep expectations realistic." I spent the next few weeks stewing on the inevitable and waiting to hear the bad news. I'm an anxious person by nature, so I naturally feared the worst. I wasn't sure if I was imagining it or not, but I was certain that I wasn't going to be working with Grinding Gear Games. I discussed this fear a lot with Octavian. Octavian didn't have any of my fears. He'd only had positive communications with Chris and was certain I was overthinking things. At this point, I realized Octavian was the priority hire and I was on the back burner. So by the end of 2019, I'd already started to feel pretty uneasy about this whole situation, which has been going on for many months now. Around early February, I spoke with Chris about this, and it turned out the possible positions we were planning for me to maybe work in were no longer available. Maybe something would be available further down the line, but nothing in the short term. And the plan was no longer that Octavian and myself would be travelling to New Zealand together. Obviously, this was and still is very upsetting, but I was glad to finally know where I stood and no longer felt like I was in some kind of weird GGG limbo. I spent the next few months telling my family and a few friends I told that it wasn't happening. It was an incredibly embarrassing, emotional time, and I still sometimes get asked when I'm going to New Zealand because grandparents are weird and don't really listen when you tell them things. I'll link her this video, so you probably still won't quite get it, but anyway. As some of you may have noticed, I struggle with this feeling over Metamorph and Delirium a lot. I would think I was over it and then something would happen that would bring it back up and I'd go into depression. When Harvest was announced, I was angry. The league idea Octavian and myself had worked and had soft pitched to Chris in his office was a league where giant carnivorous plants could be found in zones. You would kill the plants, collect their seeds, and plant them in a garden to grow some kind of weird targeted essence to roll items. It wasn't a very fleshed out or particularly original idea. People have similar ideas all the time, and coincidences do happen. When I saw the Harvest trailer for the first time on stream, I initially didn't know how to react. It just felt very surreal. I spoke to Octavian about it and he had a similar reaction. I reached out to Bex as I was really weirded out by this. Bex and Chris made it very clear that it had been purely a coincidence, and I do believe them. Still, I felt very strongly about the situation. It wasn't that I thought our league idea had been stolen. As I said, it's not a very imaginative concept at the end of the day. It was that my ideas and input are clearly good enough for GGG. If I can organise a brainstorm with Octavian, and over 2 days with no resources, we come up with a core foundation of an actual future Path of Exile league. I spoke through a lot of this frustration with Bex, which helped me, but it was clear that I was still upset and that it was seeping into my work, as some of you may have noticed. We had a Harvest reaction Bay class at an incredibly awkward moment talking about this, to which the chat filled up with lol, he thinks GGG stole this idea, what an idiot. This is a large part of why I'm making this video. I clearly still have a lot of turmoil over feeling like I had my dream job within my grasp, and now it's gone. When Octavian announced his working with GGG, a lot of these emotions came back up. I'll also admit it didn't help to see the Reddit thread on Octavian's position being filled with comments about how Baycast would be losing its best member, and that it couldn't be happening to a more deserving person. I knew that if I streamed or made any video, I'd be asked about Octavian, since it's awesome news. I'd either have to continue to pretend that nothing had happened, or I'd have to make some kind of public statement explaining how I felt about the whole situation. So, yeah. It's been a weird 24 hours. I've spoken through a lot of this with Octavian, Bex, Chris, and other members of Baycast. I'm incredibly proud and happy for Octavian. Octavian will continue to be on Baycast as a co-host for as long as it is appropriate. If further down the line it feels like it may turn into an issue, having a potential GGG employee having a permanent spot on our podcast due to NDAs and such, we'll have a conversation about it then and we'll explore our options. I don't blame Chris or have any ill will towards GGG over what happened. Saying that, I am still genuinely heartbroken, and going through these feelings without any closure isn't healthy. Chris admits things weren't handled very professionally, and I'm grateful that I'm able to make this kind of video without suffering any backlash from GGG for it. As I said, maybe in the future things might change, and I could still one day find my way working on Path of Exile in some official capacity. There is no hostility between GGG and myself. You will continue to see dev guest episodes on Baycast. We actually have plans to have Chris come on as a guest hopefully in the coming weeks to discuss Harvest, future PoE plans, and the community reaction to the whole tab situation. Finally, huge congratulations to Octavian, and if there are any game studios out there that are hiring, please let me know. I hope you all have a good day. Bye-bye. Sorry if that was a bit awkward, but it feels better already anyway. Cheers.